The thunder of rotor blades announces helicopters from miles away. Radio chatter fills enemy listening posts with target coordinates. Electronic signatures light up radar screens like beacons in the night. Every military aviation unit accepted that flying high-stakes insertions and rescue missions meant being detected by the enemy. But at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, a different breed of aviator has been systematically destroying every assumption about what helicopters can and cannot do. They flew into Grenada's humid Caribbean air and vanished between the palm trees. They threaded through Pakistan's mountain valleys and delivered Navy SEALs to Osama bin Laden's doorstep without a whisper. They've learned to make 16,000-pound war machines disappear from radar screens and move through hostile airspace like ghosts. They call themselves Night Stalkers, and they've turned the impossible into just another mission. Born from the wreckage. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment Airborne, the Night Stalkers, aren't just helicopter pilots. They fly when others won't. They fly low, fast, blacked out, and under fire. They're masters of stealth insertions, midnight exfiltrations, and high-stakes missions with no margin for error. But they weren't born from a blueprint. They were forged in failure, a direct response to a mission that fell apart under pressure and cost lives. Desert air hung thick and motionless over Masira Island, off the east coast of mainland Oman in the Arabian Sea. On April 24, 1980, 3 EC-130s and 3 MC-130E combat Talons roared off the tarmac on Masira Island off the coast of Oman. Hundreds of miles away, 8 RH-53D Sea Stallion helicopters lifted off from USS Nimitz, cutting through a black sky toward a remote salt flat called Desert 1. The mission was surgical precision, wrapped in complexity. Refuel at Desert 1, advance to a second site near Tehran, wait for nightfall, then unleash Delta Force on the U.S. Embassy to extract 52 American hostages. Just before midnight, the first MC-130 touched down using covert infrared lights invisible to the naked eye. Rangers secured the perimeter and intercepted a civilian bus carrying 44 passengers. Minutes later, a fuel smuggler's truck barreled through the cordon and erupted in flames after taking a rocket, a beacon blazing across miles of empty desert. Then, helicopters began limping in, battered by conditions nobody had predicted. One turned back with a cracked rotor blade. Another aborted mid-flight when the electrical systems failed. The remaining 6 clawed through an unpredicted haboob, a wall of sand so dense it reduced visibility to arm's length. One arrived late with hydraulics bleeding out. The final count gave 5 airworthy helicopters. The mission called for at least 6. After 2 hours of heated debate, President Carter pulled the plug. As teams prepared for evacuation, catastrophe struck. A helicopter repositioning through blinding dust collided with a parked EC-130. The explosion lit the desert like daylight, claiming 8 servicemen, 5 Air Force, 3 Marines. News of the disaster circled the globe within hours. Operation Eagle Claw had exposed fatal gaps. No unified Special Operations Command. No aviation unit trained for deep penetration night missions. No helicopter crews capable of threading terrain at treetop level in total darkness. From that wreckage emerged something revolutionary. By October 1981, hand-picked Army pilots had formed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, calling themselves the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Night Stalkers were born. Forging the elite. What separates a regular Army pilot from a Night Stalker is 6 relentless weeks in Green Platoon, a rigorous selection program where half the candidates wash out before even touching a stick. All incoming soldiers of the 160th undergo intensive training in advanced applications of the 5 core combat skills: first responder procedures, land navigation, combatives, weapons, and teamwork. Experienced aviators, crew chiefs, helicopter repair, operations specialists with top-level clearances and spotless records arrive confident. Green Platoon strips that away fast. 2-mile runs under 12 minutes lead straight into 12-mile forced marches, carrying 50 pounds across rugged terrain in under 3 hours. Miss the time standard, and the process ends immediately. Obstacle courses push physical limits while lungs burn. Water confidence drills require swimming and treading in full combat kit, preparing for downed aircraft in open water, where panic means failure and casualties. Land navigation with only a map and compass is done by day and night, often after 72 hours without sleep. Live fire exercises under night vision conditions prepare them for the disorienting reality of nocturnal warfare. Those who make it through are designated basic mission qualified, but this marks only the beginning. From there, training escalates. Low-level flight, terrain masking, night and weather infiltration, aerial refueling, fast rope insertions, survival, evasion, and mission rehearsals with zero margin for error. Selection filters for physical resilience, mental stability, and total reliability under fire. Only the most capable remain, and even then, each mission must be continually re-earned through non-stop training and real-world readiness. Once through the intense training, the chosen few would be called upon, with each pledging to, quote, maintain my body, mind, and equipment in a constant state of readiness, for I'm a member of the fastest deployable task force in the world, ready to move at a moment's notice anything, anywhere, arriving time on target, plus or minus 30 seconds. Purpose-built war machines. The 160th operates aircraft that go far beyond conventional Army helicopters, flying machines designed from the frame up for combat dominance. The MH-47G Chinook, while derived from the standard CH-47, is a heavily modified assault platform outfitted with high-frequency terrain-following radar, firing 40,000 pulses per second to scan and map obstacles in real time. Dual flight management systems, aerial refueling probes, and advanced countermeasures make it capable of operating in denied airspace, transporting 33 operators, or over 24,000 pounds of gear at altitude and in low visibility. Twin Lycoming T-55GA 714A engines provide 4,777 shaft horsepower each, giving it the muscle to carry out extended deep insertion missions beyond 2,000 nautical miles. The MH-60M Blackhawk, based on the UH-60, is another transformation. 4 flight control computers deliver precise fly-by-wire handling. Mission warning systems combine ultraviolet and infrared sensors, launching countermeasures automatically while the electronic warfare suite masks its signature. Configured as a direct-action penetrator, the MH-60M becomes a gunship. Stripped interior, miniguns, Hellfires, and 70mm rockets, built to escort infiltration teams and suppress threats with pinpoint firepower. The AH-MH6 Little Bird offers extreme agility in urban terrain. Modified from the MD-500 platform, it uses a 650 horsepower Allison engine to move a 2,400-pound airframe at over 170 knots. It's optimized for rooftop insertions, low signature flight, and high-risk close-quarter infiltration. M variants are equipped for fast rope deployment or configured with sniper platforms and precision armaments, including dual miniguns or 2.75-inch rocket pods. With no armor and limited range, they rely on speed, maneuverability, and pilot mastery to survive. Supporting it all is the MQ-1C Grey Eagle, a high-endurance unmanned aircraft vehicle that delivers 36 continuous hours of overwatch. Its sensors track through storms and darkness, relaying real-time intel directly to operators. Unlike other units, the 160th uses this UAV strictly for surveillance, providing persistent, stealthy reconnaissance to shape the mission from above without ever being seen or heard. But all this cutting-edge gear is nothing without the skilled crews who fly it, and soon those crews would face their first real test. Grenada, First Blood. Years of intensive training culminated on October 25, 1983, when Night Stalkers lifted into their first combat mission during Operation Urgent Fury. No more simulations or training scenarios. This was live ammunition and real consequences on the Caribbean island of Grenada. Intelligence was practically non-existent. A new Marxist-aligned government had taken power, unsettling the United States. Armed militias controlled key areas, and hundreds of American medical students were trapped in the chaos. The terrain was widely unknown, and many operators would navigate using simple tourist maps purchased at airport gift shops. The 160th's Blackhawks and Little Birds launched anyway, carrying Delta Force and Rangers into hostile territory with minimal preparation time. Dawn brought Task Force 160's first taste of combat as aircraft skimmed low over tropical terrain. The primary target, Richmond Hill Prison, a fortress-like compound perched atop steep cliffs overlooking the capital. The plan seemed straightforward. Fast rope Delta teams onto the roof to extract political prisoners and eliminate resistance. But nobody had intel about the ZU-23 twin-barrel anti-aircraft guns surrounding the facility. As the lead Black Hawk approached its hover point, 23mm autocannon fire, firing armor-piercing incendiary rounds at 2,000 rounds a minute, shredded the aircraft's aluminum airframe. The pilot fought desperately to maintain control before executing a hard crash landing. Another bird immediately landed under intense fire, its crew using the aircraft as cover while shielding survivors. The mission became an extraction under fire, rather than a surgical insertion. Grenada exposed the need for better intelligence, improved armor protection, and more sophisticated threat assessment. Hard lessons were learned, but they wouldn't go to waste. The Persian Gulf. By the late 1980s, tensions in the Persian Gulf were rising fast. Iranian gunboats and mine layers were turning vital shipping lanes into ambush zones under the cover of darkness. The U.S. needed a way to strike back, silently, precisely, and without escalating into open war. The 160th deployed MH-6 Little Birds and AH-6 gunships from an unlikely fleet, Navy frigates and hastily converted barges that served as floating helicopter bases. These aircraft skimmed wavetops at 30 feet, flying faster than most cars drive on highways while staying below radar coverage. No GPS existed yet, no live drone feeds, just pilot skill, spinning rotors, and emerging tech that made the impossible suddenly routine. To fly and fight in the dark, Night Stalkers needed to see in ways no human eye could. Night vision goggles amplified the faintest glow, moonlight, starlight, even the shimmer of a distant city, turning it into vivid green images. FLIR didn't need light. Supercooled sensors read heat, engines burned white hot, footprints pulsed on steel, and enemies behind cover lit up like ghosts. Operating from floating bases, the converted barge Hercules and the Navy's command ship La Salle, Night Stalkers' Little Birds prowled the dark waters of the Persian Gulf. Their crews scanned the black horizon. Behind them, heavily armed gunships waited, their miniguns and rockets ready to roar into life. On September 21, 1987, the pilot spotted their target, the Iranian vessel Iran Agir, a sleek ship converted into a mine layer, slipping silently across shipping lanes. The Night Stalkers tracked every move as the ship laid mines across the water. Then, without warning, the gunship surged forward, their M134 miniguns screaming as thousands of 7.62mm rounds tore through the night air. Rockets tore into the darkness, igniting fiery explosions that cracked the calm sea and filled the sky with smoke and light. Above, the Night Stalkers piloted their Little Birds, weaving silently through the chaos. From their hovering helicopters, SEALs fast-roped down like shadows, dropping onto the deck amid the gunfire. Every moment was critical as the SEALs moved swiftly to secure prisoners, while desperate Iranian sailors scrambled, some plunging into the black water. 5 Iranians were struck. 26 were captured. Rescue crews pulled survivors from the water's cold grip. By dawn, with critical intelligence gathered, the SEALs and explosive ordnance teams sank the Iran Agir beneath the waves, putting an end to its dangerous mission. Prime Chance ended quietly in 1989, without fanfare or headlines. But the lessons learned, turning darkness into a battlefield advantage, reshaped special operations aviation. The 160th had truly weaponized the night, and that mastery would soon be tested again. Panama. Just months later, on December 20th, 1989, at 12:46 a.m., Night Stalkers thundered back into major combat during Operation Just Cause, tasked with removing Manuel Noriega and dismantling the Panama Defense Forces before the dictator could vanish into the jungle or urban underground. Electronic warfare aircraft jammed Panamanian radar systems as Night Stalkers approached at treetop level, weaving between jungle canopy and urban structures. At La Comandancia, Noriega's fortified headquarters complex in Panama City, MH6 Littlebirds executed precision insertions, dropping Delta Force operators directly onto rooftops, while PDF forces fired from windows and doorways below. The defenders weren't surrendering easily, downing 2 helicopters, including one Littlebird that crash-landed in the Panama Canal. But Blackhawks and Littlebirds kept cycling through the combat zone, extracting wounded while providing covering fire for ground units, fighting building to building through the El Chorrillo neighborhood. Simultaneously, Rio Hato Airfield required immediate seizure to prevent enemy aircraft from escaping or reinforcing. MH-60 Blackhawks inserted Ranger battalions precisely on schedule, following a devastating F-117 stealth bomber strike that had cratered the runway and eliminated fixed defenses. Night Stalkers placed troops exactly where needed to secure the airfield before PDF forces could reorganize. Downtown Panama City presented a different challenge entirely. The Carcel Modelo prison held high-value American hostage Kurt Muse, arrested for operating anti-Noriega radio broadcasts. His rescue fell to Delta Force, but their insertion and extraction depended entirely on Night Stalker precision. Minutes before H-hour, a single Blackhawk executed a nap-of-the-earth approach, flying so low that the rotor scattered debris through city streets and achieved a perfect hover outside Muse's cell block. Commandos fast-roped through windows and extracted their target in under 15 minutes, while PDF guards arrived too late to intervene. The success in Panama was just another chapter. The Night Stalkers' relentless pace and evolving tactics would soon be tested in far harsher and more complex conflicts. Somalia. Broad daylight, October 3, 1993, Mogadishu. Task Force Ranger launched what should have been a routine 1-hour snatch and grab mission, targeting senior lieutenants in Mohammed Farah Aidid's organization. MH6 Littlebirds darted between buildings, achieving surgical hover positions, while Delta Force operators fast-roped onto target rooftops. Simultaneously, MH-60 Blackhawks inserted Ranger blocking positions at 4 corners around the objective building, creating an urban perimeter. Within minutes, Aidid's militia emerged from seemingly every doorway, window, and alleyway. Small arms fire erupted from multiple directions, while rocket-propelled grenades shrieked between buildings. Then everything went sideways. Call sign Super 6-1, one of the Blackhawks, took a direct RPG hit to the tail rotor gearbox, severing control linkages and causing catastrophic loss of anti-torque. The aircraft entered an uncontrollable spin before corkscrewing into a narrow side street. Minutes later, Super 6-4 took another RPG through the main rotor system and crashed deeper into the hostile city. Thick smoke billowed between buildings as the Night Stalkers instantly shifted from assault insertion to combat search and rescue. Every available aircraft was diverted to the crash sites. AH-6 Littlebird gunships, bristling with twin M134 miniguns, delivering 4,000 rounds a minute, and M260 rocket pods, loaded with 2.75-inch high-explosive warheads, made repeated low-altitude attack runs, engaging targets barely meters from friendly positions. Pilots flew through walls of small arms fire, providing cover for ground convoys and crash site defenders. Super 6-6 absorbed multiple hits, but limped back to base, trailing hydraulic fluid and fuel. One Littlebird was forced down near a crash site, its crew fighting alongside ground forces until extraction. Through it all, Night Stalker pilots refused to abandon the fight. Aircraft cycled through ammunition resupply and returned immediately to the battle. When Delta snipers volunteered for insertion at one of the crash sites, a 160th crew flew them directly into the attack zone. By dawn, American forces had broken contact and withdrawn after 18 hours of continuous combat. 18 Americans had fallen. Several Night Stalker aircraft were destroyed or damaged, but without the 160th's relentless support, Task Force Ranger would have been annihilated. They flew into the maelstrom and didn't stop fighting until every recoverable American was extracted. Though Somalia was a brutal test, it was far from the end. Beyond the mountains. September 11, 2001 had passed. A new era of global conflict had begun, and the 160th was ready. 2 MH-47E Chinooks clawed through thin air above the Hindu Kush. On October 19th of that year, their twin Lycoming T-55 GA-714A engines screaming against altitude that could stall aircraft or freeze fuel lines. At 8,000 feet above sea level, air density drops to just 75% of sea level values, reducing rotor efficiency and available engine power while increasing fuel consumption by 30%. Inside the vibrating cargo bays, 2 Green Beret units from Task Force Gagger, ODA 555 and ODA 595, sat motionless, bases illuminated by the green glow of night vision goggles. Operation Enduring Freedom marked the first combat insertion of U.S. Special Forces into Afghanistan, and Night Stalkers would deliver them into the heart of Taliban territory. The flight profile stretched over 300 kilometers from Karshi-Khanabad Air Base in Uzbekistan to remote mountain valleys where no American had set foot. No navigation lights, no safe landing zones. There was zero margin for navigational error. The modified Chinooks hammered through Black Mountain corridors, following terrain contours visible only through APQ-174 multimode radar and thermal imaging, while hurricane-force winds tried to slam them into cliff faces. These weren't standard CH-47 cargo haulers. The MH-47E variants carried terrain-following radar, advanced GPS navigation systems with encrypted military signals, aerial refueling capabilities extending range to 2,000-plus nautical miles, and the raw power needed to haul 12-man Green Beret teams, plus Air Force combat controllers, weapons, gear, and just enough fuel for the return journey. Pilots fought constant battles against physics and geography, maintaining level flight with no visible horizon reference except jagged peaks and electronic displays. Navigation required split-second decisions based on radar plots and infrared imagery, while flying through mountain passes barely wider than the 60-foot rotor discs spinning at 225 RPM. After nearly 4 hours of flying, they descended into landing zones that existed only as coordinates on classified maps. ODA 555 inserted into the Panjshir Valley to link with Northern Alliance General Fahim Khan. ODA 595 landed at the Darya Suf Valley to establish contact with General Abdul Rashid Dostum. Both teams disappeared into the mountain night, and within hours were mounted on horseback, conducting reconnaissance of Taliban positions and directing precision airstrikes from American aircraft. The return journey proved equally treacherous, still flying in total darkness, still threading mountain passes, still with no guarantee of safe passage. But by dawn, Night Stalkers had delivered their passengers safely across the border, completing the highest altitude, most dangerous infiltration mission in regimental history. Daylight precision. 4 hostages, 3 Italians and 1 Pole, had minutes to live inside a Baghdad safe house on June 8, 2004. Intelligence indicated a 5th captive had already been executed. Delta Force received immediate authorization for Objective Medford. 8 Night Stalker helicopters spun up across the tarmac. Normally, these warriors hunted in darkness, but daylight or not, the mission was live. 4 MH-60 Blackhawks loaded Delta Force's A Squadron, while 4 AH-MH-6 Littlebirds, armed with M134 miniguns and M260 rocket pods, launched alongside to provide overwatch and suppressive fire. The flight profile was pure audacity, threading power lines at 60 miles per hour, skimming rooftops with inches to spare, weaving between radio towers and construction cranes, while Baghdad's urban sprawl blurred beneath spinning rotors. Civilians scattered as the formation rocketed overhead, but the target coordinates were locked, and time was running out. Blackhawks flared into aggressive landing approaches, their pilots pulling maximum collective pitch to arrest forward momentum, while simultaneously reducing engine power to prevent over-torquing the transmission. Cargo doors flew open before skids contacted pavement, and Delta operators sprinted toward breach points, while rotor blade air displacement sent up violent dust clouds and rubble. Inside the building, the takedown was controlled violence, systemic room clearing that located 4 living hostages while neutralizing captors too shocked to mount effective resistance. They had just 17 seconds from breach to all clear. While Delta secured the rescue site, Little Birds maintained low orbits around the compound, weapons trained on potential approach routes for enemy reinforcements. But the speed and precision of the assault left militia forces with no time to organize counterattacks or interference. Within minutes, helicopters were airborne again, carrying rescued hostages back across Baghdad's dangerous airspace under the protection of Night Stalker rotors. The entire operation unfolded in broad daylight, inside a city swarming with insurgents, during the peak of Iraqi sectarian violence, and achieved flawless execution. Pakistan, the ultimate target. Absolute darkness cloaked the Pakistan-Afghanistan border as two stealth-modified Black Hawks lifted from Jalalabad on May 1, 2011. Their rotors whispered instead of thundered, advanced composite materials and acoustic dampening systems, reducing noise signatures by 75% compared to standard UH-60s. Electronic signatures barely registered on radar screens, thanks to RAM, or radar-absorbent material coatings and angular surfaces designed to scatter electromagnetic energy. Aboard were DevGrew's Red Squadron, Navy SEALs assigned the most critical mission since World War II. At the controls, elite aviators from the 160th 1st Battalion prepared for the most dangerous infiltration in military history. Their target, a fortified compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Their objective, Osama bin Laden. Penetrating Pakistani airspace undetected required navigation precision measured in feet, not miles, while flying at treetop level in complete electronic silence. The stealth Blackhawks represented cutting-edge technology, every component optimized for weight and fuel efficiency because the mission profile left zero margin for excess cargo or extended flight time. Modified engines provided additional power while burning fuel more efficiently. Advanced flight control systems automatically adjusted rotor pitch and engine power to maintain optimal noise levels. They slipped across the Hindu Kush like electronic ghosts to avoid radar detection while threading valleys and passes at speeds exceeding 120 knots. Navigation relied entirely on GPS coordinates, terrain-following radar, and pilot precision developed through thousands of hours flying similar profiles in training. One navigation error or mechanical failure would mean capture, international incident, and mission failure. As the lead aircraft approached the target compound, physics intervened. Vortex ring state, an aerodynamic phenomenon where rotor downwash gets trapped by walls or obstacles, creating a low-pressure zone that robs the helicopter of lift, suddenly compromised the helicopter's flight envelope. The tail struck the compound wall, but the pilot executed a controlled crash landing that buried the aircraft upright with zero casualties among passengers or crew. SEALs immediately adapted to the changed situation, scrambling from the wreckage while the second Black Hawk landed outside the compound walls. Assault teams breached multiple buildings simultaneously, clearing rooms with systematic precision until shots echoed from the main structure. Minutes later, the radio crackled. Geronimo, EKIA. Enemy killed in action. Pre-positioned MH-47 Chinooks from the 160th swept in from staging areas, inserting quick reaction force elements and extracting the entire assault team along with bin Laden's remains and captured intelligence materials. Before departure, SEALs placed explosive charges throughout the crashed stealth helicopter. The subsequent fireball denied classified technology to potential adversaries. By the time Pakistani radar systems detected unusual activity, Night Stalkers were already across the border, carrying SEALs and their historic cargo through darkness towards safety. Operation Neptune Spear lasted 40 minutes from insertion to extraction. Without the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, it never could have been attempted. The Night Stalker Standard. For the 160th, this isn't just a slogan, quote, to organize, equip, train, resource, and employ Army Special Operations Aviation Forces worldwide. It's the standard. Night Stalkers are trained to fly at less than 50 feet in total darkness, using only night vision and terrain-following radar. They land on rooftops, cliff edges, and inside tight urban compounds where rotor blades clear by inches. Flying for the 160th means complete trust in your crew, zero ego, and the mental stamina to keep going when everything else breaks down. These are aviators who've turned darkness into a tactical advantage, and they do it without fanfare. Their creed says it all, quote, like all SOF components, we had a motto. That motto was instilled in me through our selection process and will continue to aid in my decision-making process until the day I die. Night Stalkers don't quit.